Hey guys, I'm Pixel Dan, and this is a review of the Masters of the Universe Classics, Battleground Teela. Or perhaps as she's been come to be known, Blonde Bikini Teela. This new representation of Teela is actually based on the design of the character as she appeared in the old DC comic books. So let's see how her first ever action figure turned out. Teela is packaged in the Masters of the Universe Classics blister card with the name Battleground Teela across the front. The back of the box shows more figures in the line and gives this version of Teela a brand new bio for the Classics canon. Now, Battleground Teela's design is actually pretty basic. There isn't a terrible amount of extra details in the figure, mostly because she's not really wearing a whole lot. But what is there still looks really nice. Her top is colored a metallic gold. Both her wrist gauntlets and her boots share the same sculpt with the original Teela figure, just colored differently. And this Teela is actually sporting the furry loincloth, a style that is usually only reserved for the males on Eternia. The head sculpt is quite nice, with flowing blonde hair worn down. The likeness does seem a bit different from that of the original release of Teela, but looking at it you can still get a glimpse of Teela's facial features. But that blonde hair really changes her entire appearance, in my opinion. Alright guys, so let's take a closer look at Battleground Teela here. Now, first of all, I got her side by side with the original Teela for the sole purpose of showing that a comparison between the two as far as like the height goes and everything like that. They do seem to be about equally matched in their height and their build and all that like. And, you know, we've got the shared parts, as I already mentioned, with the boots and the gauntlets and such. So, very, very similar build. Now, difference with Battleground Teela here is this is actually the first time we've actually had a female figure in the line who was, well, wearing less clothing. Because all of the other previous figures, such as She-Ra and Teela and Adora, have full body pieces that fit over the female buck underneath. Whereas here we're getting a closer look at the female buck underneath. And the newer female buck, the direction that they're going to change the design of the female buck underneath. So as you can see, the pieces, it's all one solid piece here. There is no ab crunch articulation, which is the same we've had with the other females. So there's not any ab crunch, which is probably good. We get a little bit of a better female form, female figure because of this. She does have the ability to turn at the waist, and she doesn't have the clothing over the top to hinder it. This is the only thing I do kind of want to point out about it, though. Turning her at the waist is very awkward looking. As you can see, holding her, turning completely to her side, it looks very off, very strange because of the way the articulation is. The top half of her body just completely swivels over the lower half of her body and it just looks weird. Even when you have her kind of slightly posed, you still have this kind of strange overhang. You've got this large base of the lower half of the body showing there. So while her waist can turn, it looks kind of off. Now she is wearing the furry underpants, sporting the furry underwear. As you can see, it is a softer material. It's the same type of material that's been used on most of the male furry loincloths on all of the male action figures. So it's very similar there. And of course, it does not get in the way of her articulation at all. She can be posed all around. We can get her in a sitting pose. We can spread her legs out so she'll be able to straddle a battle cat or possibly a swift wind if you want to do something like that. So lots of articulation there, which is very, very good. One thing I also do want to kind of point out about the top, the head here, the blonde hair is long, it's flowing, it's worn down. The problem is it's made out of that same very rigid, stiff plastic that was used on Catra's hair. So this does get in the way of her articulation on her head. You're not going to get a lot of up and down movement because the hair is hitting the back. Left and right is okay. It can kind of swivel up over her shoulders, doesn't really get in the way. But one thing I want to point out, as was a problem with the original Teela, she's always got this looking down pose going on. Blonde Bikini Teela here kind of has that same thing. You can't really position her to look straight ahead very well. She's kind of glaring downwards. It's not as bad as the original Teela, but she's still doing it. And I think part of the problem is because the hair doesn't really allow her to look forward directly. But one good thing is that it is not a bobblehead. There's no bobbling going on. It's very solid, very intact. The head is removable, so you can pull that off if you want to switch it with the other Teela's body or anything like that. So very good. Last thing I want to point out here is the bikini top is actually a separate piece. It is not with the sculpt of the buck underneath. So it's just like with the other women's outfits that have been over it. It is actually a separate piece. Now, since it is kind of like a looser piece, it's not really form-fitting, it's not skin-tight, it actually can be moved around a little bit, and at the risk of, all the perverted comments we're going to get out of this, I'm going to show you that you actually can pull Bikini Teela's top up if you want to get a glimpse at what the female buck looks like underneath. I don't know, possibly customizers out there could utilize this. It's this way you can see that the top can come off, and there you go. That's all there really is to it. I just wanted to show you guys that it was a separate piece. So there you have it, guys. Our blonde Bikini Teela. Teela includes 2 weapons modeled after her appearance in the comic. First up is this incredibly cool sword. It's got a very cool design on the handle with a pretty basic blade attached. Now the plastic on this is very sturdy, and the sword definitely has that barbaric feel to it, which looks great in the figure's hands. Next up, a little more on the sci-fi front, is the blaster, also modeled after the one that she held in the comic. The design is very cool and really has that science fiction space look to it, but it still seems to feel right in Teela's hands. It really brings that mixture of sci-fi tech and swords and sorcery together for this one figure. Alright guys, it's comparison time. Let's see this new Teela alongside the original release Teela action figure. Notice those similarities we already spoke of, such as the reused boots and gauntlets. But the rest of the figure still feels entirely different. The faces have a bit of a similarity to them, but again, I think that hair really makes her look like a completely different person. The 2 figure skin tones are also slightly different, with the original Teela having a bit of a darker tone. It kind of seems like the redhead should be the one that's a little more pale and the blonde should be a little more tan, doesn't it? So switching the heads to see what they look like, you can definitely see the subtle differences in those skin tones. But honestly, I feel that blonde head looks really cool on the original Teela's body. Overall, I think this is a very nice figure, and makes for a great addition to the line. One of the things I love about Masters of the Universe Classics so much is that all of these different areas of the history, from the cartoons to the comics to various toy lines, can all be included. I'm always happy to see some of these earlier character concepts make it to figure form. While to me Teela will always be a redhead, I am still happy to have Battleground Teela. Plus, she looks really great posed alongside your Vicor action figure, adding even more Conan or barbarian flair to your Masters of the Universe shelf. Or perhaps you can have her as like the female version of He-Man. Maybe this is what a woman might look like if she actually had the power of Grayskull. Oh wait, we already have one of those. Never mind. Battleground Teela will be available as the quarterly variant in June on MattyCollector.com and is also part of the Eternian Collectors Club subscription. Until next time,